Hello, Autumn. This is Chris Smith. Can we do a sound check with you real quick, please?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right.
And just let me know if you can see, I'll turn the camera on here if you can see the video of the boardroom and the board members.
Yes, I
Okay.
can.
All right. I'm going to mute everything and we'll wait for your agenda item. All right.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for helping with this.
No problem. Good evening again, Mr. Schaffner. Can we do a sound check, please? You are currently muted. We couldn't hear that.
Sorry about that. I can hear you loud and clear. We're good.
Excellent. And you can see the video of the boardroom?
Yes, I can.
All right. Great.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, we'll bring the working session to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mr. Diefenbach.
Mr. Drapp,
Present.
Mrs. Dunn,
Here.
Mr. Ford,
Here.
Mrs. Geiswhite,
Here.
Mr. Gossert,
Here.
Mrs. Nestor,
Here.
Mr. Roush,
Here.
Mr. Schaffner,
Here, wherever I am.
Ms. Silcox.
Here.
Okay, we have a presentation. Dr. Christopher,
Yes, well, I just have my board report, I think at this point.
I have this.
Oh, again, I'm sorry, so Mr. Smith is going to be sending somebody in, I think, to speak with us. He's working on from PSBA. Got it.
Hey,
Hello, how are you?
good. How are you all? I'm Autumn, your member services manager at PSBA. And I want to just take a quick minute. We try to meet with all of our member districts on an annual basis, just to give you a quick update about things happening at PSBA, and then to, kind of just keep you looped in on some of the things that are available to you with your membership. And I know that you all are pretty well informed with, what's available, but it's also to kind of put a face with a name. So again, I'm your member services manager at PSBA, and we are constantly working on advocating for public education. One of our big pushes right now is the charter reform funding. And we want to thank you for being one of the 396 districts so far who have adopted that reform resolution. And we are currently working very hard to try and get something done there for all of public education. So I wanted to touch on a couple of things that are available to you with your membership. So we do have sample job descriptions that every district is eligible to get some each year. So if there's something you're interested in, I can send you out some samples. Our latest job that we've added to our list is virtual teacher. We've recognized that on the other side of the pandemic, that might be something that our districts continue to do. You do also get a board self-assessment complimentary each year. And this really is professional development for the board. And the board self-assessment is based upon the principles for governance and leadership, which you all have adopted as well. So thank you for that. So essentially it just says, looks at how well you advocate for public education as a board. How well do we, plan utilizing the strategic plan, things like that. And that is completely complimentary to you as a member. We also have our crisis communication tool, which is something that we hope that you don't have to utilize. However, if there is a situation that arises and you need clear and concise communication to get out to the community, that is available to you also as a complimentary service. Our Success Starts Here website, and I will send you a follow-up email, and in that email, we'll have a link to the Success Starts Here website and directly to your page. So Success Starts Here is another piece that we utilize for advocating for public education. And we have all sorts of demographic information related to all of our districts available on there, but we also have board leaders and whether they have taken the required school director training and all of those things. And so there's just all that information available. But what we utilize from there, especially when we're talking with elected officials, is our success stories. So we are always looking for more stories to put up there from our member districts. And if you have not seen it, the State of Ed report just came out a couple of weeks ago, and that's available on our website. And then just a couple of professional development opportunities coming up. We have our spring legal roundup next Wednesday from 1:30 to, I believe, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. May 20th, we have our all school directors monthly exchange. And we are still planning on conference in the fall. So look for more information on that. That is all I have. Look for my follow-up email. Any questions for me?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Next, we'll have the superintendent's report. Dr. Christopher.
Sure, thank you. I did prepare a couple of remarks here tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and read through those. So I wanted to provide an update to our families about several items in the district. So our transition to 4 days per week at the secondary level was going fairly smoothly until today. We had 3 cases of COVID-19 reported in the high school today, and we had several other cases that were pending tests. Because of this, we decided to move the high school to remote learning tomorrow and to stay remote during our asynchronous day on Wednesday to try and identify the contact tracing, especially that we anticipate we're going to have in the next 2 days. We want to really make sure that we've identified all those contacts before students return to school for face-to-face instruction. With the potential for 5 cases in a single day, we didn't think it's practical or reasonable to try to do this in one evening. And we want to make sure that we do this right and that we keep our students in school as much as possible. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do all that sometime by tomorrow morning, by the end of the morning tomorrow. So we're having to complete more contact tracing at the secondary schools because although the new guidelines from the CDC for school operations are 3 feet of physical distancing between students, we are still required to contact trace students and quarantine students who are within 6 feet of another student who was a COVID-19 exposure in the building. So even though we can have students at 3 feet, if you're within 3 feet, you're still considered a close contact and we have to contact trace and quarantine. So obviously that's been a lot more work for our administrative team, but they're doing a good job with that. We also have seen an uptick in cases, certainly at CVHS today, and then at Mountain View last week and Sporting Hill Elementary last week. We really want to implore our families to continue to do the things that have kept us successful, continue to physical distance, continue to have students wear masks when they're outside of school, do the best that you can to try and ensure those things. I know everybody's getting tired of this. I know people are really ready to move on, but for us to stay in school for the remainder of the school year and for us not to have so many cases is really important. Additionally, if you do have someone in your household who is pending a test for COVID-19, please do not send any other students from the household to school. We've had several of these cases that have happened and someone was at home waiting on being tested because they were symptomatic and then suddenly we have the whole house out. So those things are really important that we continue to make common sense, good decisions, and that we move forward for the next 6.5 weeks, which is really where we have at the end of the school year. I also wanted to address some of the parent comments that we have that are actually on the agenda tonight. So we've received several comments and emails from elementary parents who are concerned with the 9:30 start time next year at 4 of our elementary schools. The time is 35 minutes later than it was last year in the 2019-20 school year. And we did communicate that out to parents through a video. I sent a video out last week. Most of the concerns shared so far have been really related to challenges for working parents and trying to provide adequate supervision for students when the school day does not begin until 9:30. So we've certainly heard those and they're listed here on our board agenda tonight. Unfortunately, I think this is probably a challenge for many of our families that they face, regardless of whether that start time is 9:30 or 8:30 or 8 o'clock. I think it really depends on people's work schedules. I know many of our families have expressed this concern for years, and as a parent of an elementary age student in a 2-spouse working family, I can certainly understand that concern. And my wife and I both need to be out of the house by 8 o'clock or earlier most days and have almost always had to find both before and after school care for our children. That's also a main reason for that is that elementary schools are required to instruct students 900 hours per year, which works out to about 5 hours a day of instruction. So even with lunch and recess, which are considered non-instructional times, and even with some transportation, you're really looking at about 6.5 hours a day for elementary age students. That does not jive with an 8-hour workday, especially when you have other issues like commuting and things like that. It just doesn't work. So, I think this is not a concern. It's a concern that may be exacerbated for some individuals right now, specifically in these schools. But I think it's a concern that many of our families have had for a long time. And I think a lot of working parents share that concern. With the change we're making, there are certainly additional families who've expressed that now they need more morning care, but I would imagine there are probably also families who now don't need after school care with that change. Without some sort of blanket coverage from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m., I don't think we could solve this challenge for our families. I don't really think that we have the capacity to try and take that on at this time. Some parents have asked if we're going to provide before care, or we're going to provide coverage now in the mornings, or we're going to provide after school care coverage in the morning. We really don't have the ability to do that. I mean, we currently work with a vendor, the YMCA, who has programs in every one of our school buildings. One of the things that we were trying to do, and actually had a call today with the Y, was to actually increase the amount of available seats that are available for families. So we have some creative ways we may be able to do that by actually using some of our own staff who work part-time for us and may also work part-time for the YMCA. And we had a conversation today, Mr. Milbrand and I did, Dr. Milbrand and I did, and we think that there's some likely ideas that we can have, because the issue with the YMCA is not the ability of the physical space, it's actually the number of staff. So trying to help them with that challenge, we're committed to doing that. And we actually were working with them prior to making these changes because, as I said, this has been an ongoing challenge for families. The changes to the schedules really are a function of growth of our district and our need to continue to try and be more efficient as we open really a new building every 2 to 3 years. So I want that to sink in right now. We're currently on a cycle where we're opening a new school every 2 to 3 school years. We've been doing that now for the past 6. We are the rapidly increasing student population, which is the fastest growing in Pennsylvania. So tonight we're bringing a budget to the board with a $6.6 million deficit. So this budget includes an increase in transportation costs of $200,000, which is based on the current operational plan that I share in my video. If we had gone with our original plan, we would have a $7 million deficit as opposed to a $6.6 million deficit. It was a $400,000 additional cost. And while some of the deficit is a function of the pandemic, some of these costs are charter schools and things like that are really, we hope, one-time expenses. We think at least $3.5 million is a function of ongoing district needs for staff and operations. So we are running a deficit budget right now, and we have to be conscious of that. A large increase this year is the opening of the CV9 building at the Good Hope site. This was by far the most cost-effective option we had available to us, but it did require us to manage having high school students on 2 campuses. Should we have instead opted to build a new building on the high school campus for CV9 instead of renovating Good Hope, our deficit would have easily ballooned to $8 or $9 million, as that building would have cost somewhere between $50 and $60 million, and the renovation is costing us about $16 million. While some of our needs in making these changes were certainly financial, others are purely logistical. As conditions for recruiting drivers have actually worsened during the pandemic, we did not believe we would have been able to work with our contractors to staff the additional 18 transports we thought we needed with our original plan for CV9. So we were really beginning to wonder whether we could actually operationalize opening that building because of transportation. We've received comments asking why we're not flipping the day, bringing elementary students to school earlier than high school students. We did run some preliminary scenarios looking at this challenge from all angles. As a complex, large 3-tier meeting, we have buses that run 3 different runs each morning and 3 different runs each afternoon. So they pick up high school, middle school, elementary students. Pickups before, we would have had to have many elementary school bus pickups would have started before 7 o'clock to accomplish a flip day. And even with that schedule, middle schools would not have ended until 4:15. This is due mostly to the length of the secondary bus runs, which are much longer than elementary runs because of the larger sending areas. So obviously we only have 2 middle schools. You have to go pick up all the kids in these sending zones. In the high school, we currently are going to have 2 high schools, which is the entire school district. So, it would have been a big challenge for us to say that we could have done that, and really would have extended the busing timeline quite a bit. And I'm not sure the parents would have been really excited about having elementary kids on a bus at 6:35 either. So the other options we looked at, and also would have resulted in having the elementary school day ending somewhere between 2 and 2:15 with no high school or middle school students at home at the end of the day to help watch younger siblings. So you would have just shifted your problem. The schedule would have shifted the required outside of school care time from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. And that may have worked better for some families, but it probably would have been worse for others. If we would move the elementary school day back to 8 o'clock a.m. as a start time using that flipped model, the high school and middle schools would not end until between 4:30 and 4:45, which is really not reasonable when you think of the number of activities that are happening on those campuses after school. Our current plan requires a change to the elementary day that's either 15 minutes later or 35 minutes later than the times we had in the 2019-20 school year. As part of this plan, we're reducing ride times for students, including elementary students, and should be able to have buses at buildings on time for dismissal, something we've rarely been able to do at all of our schools in the past. We're addressing early bus stop times for most secondary students and are greatly enhancing the operational efficiency of our transportation system, which each day transports more than 10,000 students 2 times a day, services 34 school sites, and has buses that travel the circumference of the earth every 2 days. We are transporting students to a new high school location and are doing all this for about $200,000 more than we spent in the 2019-20 school year. We thank our parents who've shared concerns so that we can work to address them moving forward. We do hear you and we hear your concerns. We believe the schedule we have developed provides the best options for our students over the life cycle of their school careers and provides us with a transportation schedule that is workable and has the ability to absorb some ongoing growth. Without that, it would not matter what we presented as the schedule because the reality of stop times, pickups, and drop-offs would have been very different than what we were showing on paper. We could have said this is the end time and the buses don't come for 30 minutes and pick the kids up and we're still watching them at school. I really want to be clear too. We are committed to working with our community childcare providers to help to address the concerns that the parents have shared. We believe that by working with our community partners, we will be able to provide greater options for all of our families in the fall. So we do hear you. We are working to try and address some of those concerns. But you know, when we look at the totality of the schedule, it is so much better for so many of our students. It really is. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Christopher,
Yes.
for the remote learning, people are confused. Unless they hear from their coach or musical director, activities are happening as planned tomorrow and Wednesday.
Yeah,
The
and
only way if they hear from their coach or musical director directly, that's something different, but otherwise, everything that is planned is taking place.
yeah, we're hoping to complete contact tracing, which will include activities and things of that nature by the end of the morning tomorrow. And so if they are canceled because there are contacts, they will know that. But with 5 cases, we just didn't feel we could manage that tonight.
Thank you. On the president's report, I don't have anything this evening. For committee reports, since the last meeting, any of the committee chairs would like to talk about their meetings? I know we had a finance this evening.
Yeah, finance met tonight. We discussed the budget and unanimously suggested taking it to full board for a vote tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Roush. Any of the other committee chairs? Curriculum, did you have anything you want to share? Thank you. Okay, with that, do we have any, I don't see 12th graders, 11th graders? No students tonight. Okay.
Just with regards to curriculum, just to let the board know that what is coming up on, do you want to? I was just going to reiterate, Barb, that with regards to curriculum and ed committee meeting that we had with regards to the items that are on the agenda that we all approved of them going forward.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nestor. Okay, administrative discussion items for this evening. The administration requests approval of the tentative budget for the 2021-22 general fund budget, which calls for the expenditures of $161,321,926 and revenues of $154,678,592, with the remaining $6,643,334 being funded with the school district's fund balance reserved with real estate taxes to be set at 10.533 mils. Mr. Willis.
Thank you. This evening, as you see before you, is the tentative budget for the upcoming 21-22 school year. We're going to do kind of a 3-part series of presentations here. Dr. Christopher is going to start out by doing a presentation just on some facts related to Cumberland Valley and kind of the position that we are in going into this budget. Then Mr. Diefenbach is going to run through the numbers related to the revenues and expenses, and then we'll have any other questions. I will tell the general public that the board did meet on March 27th in a public session to review much more detail. And this is the result of that work. This is, again, the tentative part. We will go for a final approval on May 24th. And then subsequently after that approval, if approved, we would start working on the tax bills for the 21-22 fiscal year. I will remind the board that the tentative budget cannot go any higher than these approved numbers or approved millage, but it can decrease from over the course of the 30 days. So, Christopher. Okay.
Thank you. So I did present this at the budget retreat a couple weeks ago, and I think it really tells a tale of the growth of the school district and some of the challenges we keep seeing and are going to continue to see for a while. So the first thing we did is we actually looked at some comparison school districts to try and say, okay, how are we funded? Are we funded similarly to them? We funded less than they are, and where are we? So we found districts that had between 6,500 students and 12,000 students with a free and reduced lunch rate of between 10% and 30%. Cumberland Valley is right in the middle of that group. All of the districts listed except 2 also have the lowest market value personal income aid ratio, which means that they can only raise taxes 3% too. 2 of the districts can raise taxes more than that. The rest of them are all at 3%, which means you're in the top 40 school districts in Pennsylvania in that neighborhood in terms of what is anticipated as your district's ability to fund itself. I think is the best way to put that. So meaning it's up to the school district to provide funding because you have the means to do so, is how Act 1 has been written. So Cumberland Valley has the lowest per student expenditure of this group at $13,208, and the highest is State College at $19,191. If you scroll through there, you can just get kind of a look. So we're at 13,208. The next is East Penn. That is not East Pennsboro, it is East Penn. And East Penn's is 15,406. So they have a $2,000 difference per student, $2,200 difference per student. For the public, that's about $22 million in revenue that Cumberland Valley would have if we have the same student expenditure. For State College's difference, we would have roughly about $60 million more dollars in revenue if we had the same per student expenditure as State College does. So the board has done a very good job over a long period of time of ensuring that we have a low cost. We are providing a great service to families, we're providing them with a tremendous education. We compare very favorably to these school districts in all of the education-related outcomes. But in terms of revenue, we are behind them. Just give you kind of an idea. The other challenge we have is, unlike most of those districts, we're growing really quickly. And so per student expenditure as a measure, I mean, we would anticipate that per student expenditure will actually go down next year at Cumberland Valley because we think we'll have more kids registered than we actually increase funding. So we are growing very fast, and that is causing us to have, lots of challenges like opening new buildings and trying to do all kinds of different things that we have to do here. I would rather be growing really quickly than stagnating or losing students, let's be honest, but it is causing us to have some more difficulty. Based on the group, we'd have about $37 million more dollars in our budget if we had similar funding to the group that I shared with you there. So in the CAIU, Cumberland Valley is 10th in the per student expenditure compared to the other school districts in the CAIU. With Big Spring having the highest per student expenditure at $17,000 and Shippensburg being just below us at $13,002. But it's a lot tighter here, I think, than it did with the other groups. But we are, in terms of this group, we are the wealthiest district, barring maybe Derry Township, in terms of market value per income ratio, and certainly in terms of average household wealth. So for us to be at the very bottom really also shows that the district has done a very good job of managing costs over a long period of time. But it is catching up to us a little bit, especially as we're growing very quickly. As you can see, we're keeping pace fairly well with this group, although as we continue to grow faster than the group, we may see more separation there unless we are able to continue to raise some revenue here. So we're eligible for a 3% Act 1 increase. That is the lowest percentage of Act 1 for the state of Pennsylvania this year. So there are lots of districts that can raise their Act 1 index all the way up over 4%, depending on their market value personal income aid ratio. Cumberland Valley is one of the 40 districts that is stuck at 3. So while that does seem like a lot of money, and it is more than we have seen previously, it is the lowest amount available in Pennsylvania this year. You can go ahead, Chris. That's all right. People can read that. Major cost drivers in our budget right now, charter school costs this year are about $1.25 million more than they were previously. We have healthcare costs about $574,000. Increased staffing, which is really going at the high school. We're using some staff for CVVA and then just general growth, some elementary positions, some of those kinds of things. CV9 is the big lift there, and that's about $2.7 million of an additional cost in our budget. We have had growth in special education programs, which I'll show you here in a little bit, but that has been growing very rapidly. We do provide a great service to families, and we have quite a few families who have moved here into the district to try and get those services, I think, for their children. We are adding $680,000 in one-time technology infrastructure costs. And then we have some district projects that we're going to be paying out of fund balance really for CV9 and some of those other kinds of things. The district did make a change to the substitute management service, which has a cost of about $365,000. We're really not sure where that's going to end up. That's kind of our guess at this point, and that's what we're projecting. And then moving 1-to-1 K to 12, we accelerated that over the last 2 years, and those costs are going to be about $700,000 additional dollars from where we were last year. CVVA, so right now, we did hire a full-time principal. We're going to budget some Keola costs, which is we have some ability for students to take classes live with teachers, quite a bit actually, but then we also realized that we can't manage all the electives for our virtual academy next year like we did this year. The high school schedule is built to do that this year. It will not be built to do that next year. So we're approximating about 200 secondary students, and that would be about a $3 million cost. So if they went to charter schools, the cost would be $3 million. And we're thinking our cost is going to be about $335,000 if we can do it in-house. So a big difference, obviously, in terms of managing it internally versus losing students to charters. We did actually really well this year. I do want to thank our staff for all their work. I believe we probably have some of the lowest percentage charter losses in Pennsylvania. Our teachers did a great job. We were able to build a complete virtual academy that provided a lot of our families with options this year. I am hearing other districts that are saying that they're seeing losses of $5 million year over year. Ours seems high for us. It is a big cost to us, but it is not what it could have been by any means. CV9, a lot of this, as we said, is really just moving, you're moving program over to the 9th grade, which means you're going to have to add some staff. It also is going to help reduce some staff sizes at the high school, which have been averaging well into the 30s in many of these classes. So we're trying to get that a little bit more right-sized as well. We are adding some additional other high school positions for the same thing. And then we have 4 middle school positions also in the budget to actually address class size. A lot of this is going to depend on how many students end up in CVVA, how many end up face-to-face. I think it's going to be a little bit later in the year till we have this all figured out. Later than we would like. We are going to be increasing some other positions, transportation secretary, business office. We have a couple other folks. We have not right-sized those areas, even though we've grown dramatically and things have become more complex. So this is a time we're going to do that. We currently also have 2 police officers in the budget. We are looking at replacing our Silver Spring Township School Resource Officer, and that will be a board decision in May. But that is what is currently budgeted. Special ed growth. This has been an area where we've done a great job, I think, in maintaining more of our students in our classrooms. We think it's in their best interest to be at school, and we do try and have them here at school with us. We believe students, are CV students, they should be in CV schools. But we have increased some of our programs to support that. So next year, we're planning about $530,000 in additional staff costs and about $74,000 in additional support costs for the programs that we're going to be implementing. This next slide just shows you the growth in our autism classrooms over the last several years. So generally, these classrooms have about 8 students who can be in them. So we went from, somewhere about 32 maximum student capacity in 15, 16. So you're gonna make me do 17 times 8 in my head. That's gonna be ugly. It's like 136. So pretty massive changes in terms of our students with autism and student population. Other districts are also seeing these changes. This certainly isn't just Cumberland Valley, but our size definitely impacts that. But the plan is next year we will have 17 autism classrooms across the school district. And then we just provide the funnel, which we did at the board retreat, just for you to kind of get an idea of things we funded in the project, things we're still determining feasibility, things we might be thinking about. Just because it's on the board doesn't mean it's going to happen. We just put it on the board because people have thought about it. And then we really try and get it over to the funded in the proposed budget, and that's what we're looking at for this year, which is, we did make some updates to the baseball and softball fields, the whole 9th grade academy. We're doing some capital projects. We're redoing the network at the high school, Monroe, Hampton. The whole 9th grade academy from an operating standpoint, CVVA, and then we made a major change to the high school schedule. It's going to be very impactful for our students, can be a very positive thing for them. And we went 1-to-1 K to 12. And then we're doing a lot of curriculum updates. We're going to be using some federal grant money to do that. So it's a lot of moving parts. We have a lot of things going on. That's probably going to be where we are for a while. I anticipate, with growth comes change, and I don't know that we're going to be stagnant here. I think for us to continue to provide that really high quality education to our students, we're going to have to be flexible. And, it's challenging when you're the size of an aircraft carrier to be as nimble as a little cutter, but we're trying. We're doing what we can do. It is a big ship to move, and we moved a lot of things this year, but we feel like we're in a really good position to get into the summer and then move forward in the fall and hopefully have a little bit less change for folks. Any questions for me?
I have one. Does that include all the staffing that
Yes.
includes everybody
Yep.
that we got?
Yep. That's the full change, and it'll be impactful for our students. They're going to see impacts. I think my concern right now is just really trying to identify who is going to CVVA, what students are actually going to do that. So we have a lot of people who would like to have more time, who are on the fence, who are wondering whether they can make a decision in August. That's going to be really challenging for us to staff. So we continue to push back and say we really need to have that information from you sooner than later. We understand why parents are apprehensive in making those changes. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what it's going to look like in August. I mean, no one does. But at the same time, we can't staff everybody in both of those things and then try and make it work at the end. It just won't work. So we'll continue to work on that and try and get those numbers tighter to you as we move into the summer.
Any other questions for Dr. Christopher?
Thank you.
You can leave that there, just mute it, please.
Item number 2, the administration requests the approval of 4 additional elementary FLA curriculum pilots, 95% group, Letterland, Reading Horizon, and Amplify's CKLA program. Dr. Milbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Drepp. This item, as Mrs. Nestor said, was reviewed and sent forward by the Education Curriculum Committee. Prior to COVID, we were working on piloting some ELA core curriculum resources. Throughout the COVID closure and then moving forward, research continues to evolve relative to ELA programming and the science of how kids learn to read. So we chose as a committee of stakeholders to recommend trying out 3 systematic explicit phonics programs. And that's what you see there, the Letterland, the Reading Horizons, and the 95% group, as well as trying out a full K-5 program that is grounded in the science of reading called Amplify CKLA. So it is the committee, the curriculum committee, as well as the stakeholder committee that I work with to try these pilots in 2021, 2022, with the anticipation of selecting one for implementation in 22, 23.
Thank you. Items number 3 through 9, these 7 are second reads. I'll pass it over to Dr. Christopher. If you have any questions after any of these descriptions, which are going to be brief since he described them in detail the first time, he'll pause for just a second after each one before going to the next one. Dr. Christopher.
Yes, thank you. So policy 117 is homebound instruction. That really would govern how the district would manage homebound instruction for students who have medically necessary reason that they're at home. And that has just been updated with some PSBA recommended language. Policy 146 is student services. It really kind of just lays out the fact that the district is required to have a student services plan as part of our comprehensive planning cycle. That cycle is due in the next several months. We will be working through that over the summer with the goal of having that completed early in the spring next year. Policy 146.1 really goes along with some new laws related to trauma-informed education and the district's responsibility to provide training to staff members and to school board members, who a lot of you did your trauma-informed training with us last year with PSBA. Policy 333 is professional development, really calls out what is required for school districts as part of their professional development plan. Once again, it's under the comprehensive planning cycle that the district is required to complete every 6 years. Policy 200 addresses student age and residence requirements to enroll in schools. So it really goes through the school code and outlines several things. The biggest change here is that we are required to provide a home language survey to identify what languages are spoken in the home, and then to provide some testing for students and resources for families if they do not speak English as their primary language. Policy 201, admissions of students. This is really looking at the age requirements for admission of students to first grade into kindergarten. We reviewed this policy fairly recently, but there are a couple of updates the PSBA has requested that we make. And policy 202, eligibility of non-resident students, really looks at what the residency requirements are to attend district schools if you do not live here. So if you're not a resident, how could you attend school here? And really looks at court placements and, really looking also at individuals who might be living with someone who does reside in the school district and how they would go through the process of establishing that the student can come to school here. So these are kind of boilerplate policies. Our last two, policy 201, admission of students, is specific to detailing the I'm sorry, I went through those, didn't I? I got them both. Yep.
Thank you, Dr.
I thought
Christopher.
I had another one, right?
Board discussion items. Is there any other business that any other school director would like to bring to the board at this time? Hearing none, we adjourn the working session, call to order the regular board meeting. I need to get the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment. We had, as Dr. Christopher mentioned, we had several that came in ahead of time. I have one here if anyone else has it during this portion of the meeting. We also have another opportunity for public comment at the end. We ask that anyone wishing to make public comment, please complete a blue card in the back of the room and submit it. I'll bring it forward. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes in duration, and there will also be a second opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. So with that, and we ask you just to come up here. We have the microphone up here. For the one card I have is Andrew Clancy from Monroe.
Good evening. It's good to see everybody out again. Good to be back in person once again, and certainly hope that the situation at the high school gets resolved quickly. I was going to come up and talk again about my disappointment with getting rid of science labs. I think every meeting I've been to, I've discussed that. Does anybody know my position on that? Anybody have any questions on that? My information's on the blue card. Feel free to give me a call. What I did want to do is say, as we go through making these decisions, as we reimagine what school looks like, there's a lot of difficult decisions and a lot of balls in the air that need to be juggled to come up with the end result. My encouragement is that we always look at the end result and compare that to the question, does this enhance or detract from the education of the students? And there's so many ways that we enhance that every day. When I look at a couple of things that have come up recently, from an outsider's perspective, I'm sure there are reasons why this was done, but when I look at the new high school schedule, it takes away the 6-day cycle, takes away those cycle days. We miss things like science lab. An outsider looks at that, and on face value, my estimation is it detracts. When I look at the decision that I understand has been changed, and I think it should be made permanent, taking away vote tech from 9th graders. I'm sure there was a reason for that. When I look at that as an outsider, I say that detracts. We need to look at those end results. When I look at CVVA, awesome. That's something everybody needed when this pandemic hit. When I look at the opportunity that gives to students to not have to come in person every day, they can still get the education they need. Great system. If we're going to make that permanent, there are some things that need to change. It looks like we're making those changes, and that's good. When I look at a robust and sustainable virtual academy, what does that do for the school district? Number one, it cuts down on the number of students in any particular building. When I look at the high school, pre-COVID, approximate numbers, 2,800 students. Next year, we're going to have 700 of those at the 9th grade academy. That brings us down to 2,100. If we have about 30% in the virtual academy, that brings us down to 1,470. Again, approximate numbers, but that's great when we start to look at social distancing, when we start to look at, do we need to build a new high school? We can defer that $50 to $100 million cost down the road. That's an awesome thing to do. Certainly, though, we want to be able to do that without hindering the education of the students who are coming to school. And it sounds like with staffing, we're able to do that, and the planning that's gone into it. So I would certainly encourage that, to make that a sustainable program as we go out into the future. Thanks.
Thank you. The final card is Amy Hermance from Middlesex.
Good evening. I'm Amy Hermance. I'm from Middlesex Township. I'm a mother of 2 middle school boys. Oh, okay. Is that better? I feel like I'm so loud. I'm a special education teacher in the district, and I'm also the vice president of the elementary education for CVVA. After last school board meeting, I received texts and phone calls and emails and was stopped at soccer games and baseball fields about the change of the schedule for elementary students. Many parents are not feeling it is doing what is best for elementary students. No, they're not looking at high school, they're not looking at middle school, and they're not looking at 9th graders. But what they're saying is, my child is up. He's ready to go. He doesn't have an alarm. With them starting later, they have now been sitting awake just waiting. We also have parents that will need before care that never needed it before, which costs hundreds of dollars a month. We also have students that might go to Silver Spring, but need to go to Shaw. And now we have a family that has 2 different times for their elementary students to go to school. We also need to remember that at the end of the day, middle school and high school students get up, go to their locker, and get on the bus. Our students need to wait. We do pickup, we do the Y, and we call 2 buses at a time to ensure that they don't miss a bus. This takes a good 20 minutes, whether the buses are there or not. I spoke to many elementary teachers, and although it's not anything that might affect the students, they are worried about what they are going to do in afternoons when they now need the day off. Will there be enough substitutes? Because that has always been a problem. And your elementary teachers do everything possible to get that 4:30 appointment to not mess up the education of the students. Also, as a teacher who holds meetings, we will need to figure out how to have coverage to ensure those IEP meetings can be had after school. We have cut the number of times we can hold a meeting in half by not having the afternoons available. When parents can't make it in the morning and your staff leaves at 4:30, we're going to have problems. Your face-to-face elementary teachers have done a lot this year. They have been asked to do a lot, and they've done even more. This has nothing to do with the change for next year, but I do want the school board to know. You had teachers who had students from 8:20 until 1 o'clock without ever having the opportunity to use the bathroom. You had teachers that had no planning because that had to be canceled due to needing coverage. Your teachers were outside every day doing recess duty for 30 minutes. You had teachers switching to online teaching as fast as within 2 hours. Many times when spoken in meetings, the admin said everything was going smoothly. It wasn't, and it didn't. Your teachers hit it well. Your teachers made miracles happen this year, and they don't feel they are appreciated. Thank you.
Next is the approval of the minutes from the March 27th special board meeting and the April 6th board meeting. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is a statement of the treasurer, approval of the following statement of the treasurer for the month of March 2021.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the monthly bills list. General fund check numbers 78112 through 78450 for $10,875,482. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Athletic fund check number 17170 through 17295 for $91,140.02. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Cafeteria fund check number 3636 through 3683 for $82,144.90. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Board construction fund check number 663 through 671 for $2,515,090.26. Can I get a motion to approve?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On action items, the administration requests approval of a tentative budget for the 2021-2022 general fund budget, which calls for expenditures of $161,321,926 and revenues of $154,678,592, with the remaining $6,043,334 being funded with the school district's fund balance reserves with real estate taxes to be set at 10.533 mils. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Any questions? With this, we're going to have a roll call vote. Mr. Diefenbach.
Mrs. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Mrs. Geisway,
Yes.
Mr. Gosser,
Yes.
Mrs. Nestor,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Schaffner,
Yes.
Mrs. Silcox,
Yes.
Mr. Drapp.
Yes. The administration requests the approval of 4 additional elementary FLA curriculum pilots, 95% group, Letterland, Reading Horizon, and Amplify CKLA program. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any board member would like to remove for individual consideration? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda items as listed?
Motion. Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The administration recommends the approval of the following STS guest teachers. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The administration recommends the approval of the following for employment. Employment is contingent upon receipt of all necessary clearances and verification forms. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The administration recommends the approval of the following additional summer help for the custodial department as listed. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The administration recommends approval of the following volunteer coaching positions as listed. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The administration recommends the approval of the following transfer as listed. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there any other business the Board of School Directors may want to present at this time? Mr. Ford.
I have one item. As a graduate of and a teacher at Redland, I would like to take this opportunity to commend the CV baseball team for their actions last week prior to the game against the Patriots. Last year, a parent, coach, and member of the Redland family was diagnosed with ALS. Prior to the game, the CV baseball team presented Rob Gilday with a signed team helmet and a donation to ALS research. These young men move beyond competition and make us CV proud. Way to go, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Public comment. This is the second round of public comment. We have one. Carol Yanity from CVEA.
Good evening. My name is Carol Yanity, a sixth grade teacher at Mountain View and president of the Cumberland Valley Education Association. I would like to begin tonight by recognizing Melissa Rolapal, school nurse at Middlesex Elementary, who was named the 2021 Regional School Nurse Excellence Award for the South Central Region, a recognition well-deserved. I would also like to give a shout out to all of our professional staff. Secondary staff have welcomed students into the buildings 4 days a week, but if you talk to the students, they were exhausted over the weekend. And our elementary face-to-face staff have been working with students 5 days a week since August. Not only has our professional staff been working face-to-face in the buildings and virtually for 3 marking periods, many of our teachers are going above and beyond to provide students with special activities, such as Mrs. Heidi Gracie, who has been taking her CVVA kindergarten students on virtual field trips, Mrs. Bobby Logan, high school teacher, who tweaked her egg project for her sociology students, and Mrs. Julia Yarlett, 5th grade at Green Ridge, who was silly strained by her students. Starting next week, Cumberland Valley EA is pleased that we will be holding our 4th annual book drive for all of the 1st graders in Cumberland Valley School District. All 726 students, face-to-face and virtual, will be receiving an Elephant and Piggy book from the Mo Williams series. This year, we will be partnering with Mrs. Gina McVitie and her preschool child lab students, who will be helping us to bring the characters Elephant and Piggy to all 8 elementary buildings. So very excited about that. I want to thank the board for voting to raise taxes to index to address some of our staffing shortfalls. The tentative budget passed tonight does add some needed positions, but it still falls short in addressing the lack of a certified librarian for CV9, and CV will still have only 1 certified librarian for all 8 elementary buildings. There will still be many classes of over 30 at Mountain View and the high school, and potentially at several elementary buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Prior to the board meeting, we had an executive session where we discussed security, personnel matters, and litigation. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Can I have a second? Second. So moved. We're adjourned.